welcome to this October 3rd, 2024 regular scheduled Newmarket School Board meeting.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First order of business is to open a public hearing. So, to the inhabitants of the town of Newmarket, hereby notified that pursuant to New Hampshire RSA 180, 198, 20C, the Newmarket School Board will hold a public hearing on the expenditure of funds from the School Repair and Maintenance Trust Fund in an amount of $255,000. This hearing is required under NHRSA 198.2C. Jana, would you mind presenting briefly what the items of the money will be used for?
Hi, good evening. The hearing that we're holding tonight for the $255,000, if you recall, several years ago, we were able to replace phase one of the Newmarket Elementary School windows. We didn't have enough funding at the time to do the entire building, so this represents phase two. The board has already voted to waive the bid policy on this second phase because we wanted to use the same vendor we did before. So we basically have a contract in place with them for $255,000. The intention, in accordance with our capital improvement and maintenance plan that you approved recently, is to take the money from an existing trust fund. It's part of our planned expenditures.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Any members of the public would like to make a comment during the open hearing? Please feel free to do so. Seeing no one, we will close the public hearing at 5:17. All right. The board may notice that Todd and I have decided to truncate the number of times we have a public comment period. After one, seeing that we haven't used the two that we had. So with that, we will open the floor to public comment at 5:17 agenda items. All right, seeing no one approaching the mic, we close the public comment at 5:17. You have to start using seconds. Next, are there any board comments, committee updates? What would you like to give?
I did reach out to the PTA to invite them to see if they'd be interested, a representative or multiples would be interested in attending a upcoming board meeting. So when I hear back, we'll find a date. Just saying that we would like to hear about some of the things they're doing at the elementary school.
And I think your idea of having us attend some of the meetings is great too. That was an option.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going. There's next Tuesday. I'll have to look. Can't remember if it's the second or third. I think it's the third, second or third Tuesday of every month. But next Tuesday is the elementary school, one of their open houses. So.
If they want to invite us, they want to invite us to a meeting, so we don't have to show up at every meeting. Any other comments? Okay.
Yeah, the budget committee met on Monday night. This was the month where the town business administrator came in and presented. The town's finances looked pretty healthy as of the end of the fiscal year. They were underspent on expenditures, over-collected on revenues. If I remember right, they were coming out with a net fund balance of somewhere north of $1 million, 1.4 sticks in my head. The council hasn't made a decision yet as far as what they're going to seek to retain versus refund the taxpayers, but that decision should be coming up shortly.
Okay. Good policy last week. We discussed policy for tonight. And then Todd and I did meet with the chair, town council, and the town manager, and set up an agenda which should be coming out soon for our joint meeting.
We should probably say that negotiations with NTA is continuing.
Great. break down into superintendent reports.
So actually, before we do that, Olivia obviously was unable to be here tonight, but she did send along her
Oh,
report.
okay. Great.
So I told her I would be happy to do my best Olivia impression, and I will share it. The reason she's not here is because she's got a soccer game at Concord Christian tonight, so that's where she is. So in her report, she wanted to share some of the athletic news. First off, she wanted to let people know that the girls' soccer team is on a winning streak. They've now won, they won all 3 games last week. They won Monday 8-2 against Sanborn, and they won 5 in a row. So doing quite well, and obviously they're in Concord tonight. And on Friday night, they have they call it the Pink Out game here against Hinsdale, where it ties into some efforts by hold on, I want to make sure I get this right. The Interact Club is doing a promotion around, SALT is doing a promotion around cancer and so forth. And the Pink Out is raising awareness of cancer. Boys soccer team, they're on had a bumpy last week. However, they're continuing to compete. They have a game tonight at Concord Christian. Their Pink Out game is Friday night as well. So on Friday night, the boys play at 4, and then the girls immediately after. Cross country team has a meet tomorrow at PCA. And then they have their home meet, which was rescheduled because of rain, has been rescheduled to Monday. So if you're a cross country geek like me, it says meet Monday, but you since you have a son who runs, you would probably know better than I would.
A runner to watch.
So you can correct it. So Monday or Tuesday, they have their one home meet early next week, to be confirmed. I would encourage anybody who's planning to go check the website to get the exact date. Other things, the SALT, they're doing the breast cancer awareness, and they're doing all the Pink Out events that we just described.
They do a fundraise that night, right?
Yep. They're going to be providing a link to the American Cancer Society where you can donate, and they're promoting it through Instagram, QR codes, and all that kind of stuff. So be on the lookout for that. And they're also doing. They did a tailgate party at the football game Friday night. What is the second? The second was Tuesday. Okay, on Tuesday. So they did a tailgate party. Again, I mentioned Interact Club before. They just getting organized. They had they're an organizational meeting, and 33 kids have signed up for Interact, and it's a service organization. For those who don't know, they plan to do smile cards, and those are cards that they get their members to do, and then they send them to the Pines for the residents over there, which is a nice thing to do. Student Council is planning, they're calling it trick or canning. So basically, kids will be going out on Halloween to trick or treat, but they'll be collecting canned goods and they will be delivered to a local food pantry. It doesn't say exactly where, but Student Council is getting involved in that. And lastly, the senior class is at all the soccer doubleheaders. They're going to they set up a table, and they're going to be selling mule gear for those of you who are interested. You need a foam finger, beaded necklace, a headband, stickers, pom-poms, glasses. Those will be for sale by the senior class at all doubleheaders in soccer for the rest of the season. So that was Olivia's report. I have to admit, Olivia does a better job. So. Okay.
Now,
Okay, now on me again. Okay. I did want to mention, and I'll do a much more detailed report at the budget workshop, but October 1 is the big date for enrollments. That's how you measure. October 1 is the key date for enrollment projections and so forth. And so as of October 1, just to give you an idea, we had 977 students, pre-K through 12 in the Newmarket schools. That was compared to the 986 we had as of October 1, 2023. So we're pretty close to where we've been over the last 2 years. But again, at the budget workshop, I'll give you a detailed analysis of that, and you can see it by grade level and all that stuff. Speaking of the budget workshop, I did want to just acknowledge the leadership team's been really working hard developing our budget. A lot of work goes in there, going through it line by line, making sure that we have everything as we need it. Again, remember, we had set a goal of a 2% operational budget, and we're working hard to develop that. I did want to say a couple of things, just because I'm really impressed at the work that's happening. We did presentations with the staffs at the end of last school year, talking about the budget process and really trying to engage staff and thinking about making requests for the budget that really fit the parameters. And I think people really took to heart, and they're really thinking about what they really need versus, a wish list. And it really speaks to the fact that people are kind of understanding what we're trying to accomplish. And I think it's a really good sign that we're in it together. So I'm really pleased by that. So it isn't a lot of Todd said kind of stuff. It's like people are coming to the table with reasonable, good proposals. So really pleased by that. So at the October 17th budget workshop, I anticipate sharing with you the product of that work. Just to give you an idea of what I'm anticipating, I am going to try to restructure the budget workshop, if you will. What I want to do is try to front load it with the financial information, but then spend a bigger chunk of time having what I would call aspirational conversations, either specifically about if there's anything more you want us to do with the budget process, but also things that you want us to start thinking about as we plan ahead, such as capital needs and those kind of things. So I'm hoping that the budget workshop on the 17th will be productive for all of us. So there's that. And then I did want to just comment, we had a teacher workshop day last Friday. A lot of really great stuff happened there. We did, both schools have been working on their school growth plans, so a chunk of the day was spent on growth plan work and working in subgroups and teams. A second part of the day was just spent on collaborative planning around a variety of projects that we have going on in the school. And then we did a 2-hour suicide prevention training with staff. Very productive day. I thought it was a really good one. I did get a couple of questions from the community as to why did we have a PD day on September 27th when other school districts were not. And one of the things I just want to hearken people back to, our school calendar is somewhat influenced by the fact that we are in SST. Our students go to SST, and we are required by law to align ourselves. And so one of the challenges is when you bring 6 school districts together and you try to minimize conflicts, basically the reason that would be the 27th is a large number of districts sending to SST take that day off because it's the Deerfield Fair. Now I know that that doesn't carry a lot of weight in Newmarket, but it was to align ourselves with other districts. In future years, I did have a conversation with Steve Fournier, because some districts took the state primary day off because they were using their schools as a polling place. And certainly anybody who voted on state primary day here realizes how chaotic and crowded it was here, and certainly discussing whether or not in future years we might want to use the school building to make it just safer for everybody. And so just know that that's something that we might consider. And other districts also consider having PD days in October. They usually extend that Columbus Day weekend. A lot of districts have that Friday, because Friday, October 11th, aligns with the state NEA teacher conference, and a number of teachers go to that. That being said, our primary reason for the 27th is to align with the SST calendar, and so that's the reason, if anybody felt confused as to why we were doing that. So that's all I have.
I think primary year is a bit of an outlier historically because of the line of the presidential election year and the general movement in the country, but normally it's nowhere near where it is this year.
There was a really heavy turnout, no question. Yeah.
Which is great.
I just want to confirm our budget workshop is at a school board meeting from 4 to 8.
Correct. It's October 17th, 4 to 8, and it will be in the Town Hall auditorium.
All right. All right. We'll move right along. We have a presentation tonight, the 23-24 quarter 4 financials by our own business administrator, Ellen. Come on down.
Hello. So this is a little anticlimactic because we've already discussed what we have returned, but to offset taxes in the next year. But this kind of breaks down, gives you a little bit more information, goes into more detail. I'm going to kind of hit the real high summary points. If you have questions, let me know and we can go into more detail. Basically, as you know, the amount that we return at the end of the year is made up of several things. It's made up of unexpended expenditure budget. It's made up of additional revenues and certain accounting adjustments. So the first component of that in our report we talked about is we ended the year with a positive expenditure balance of $743,500, meaning that we underspent a little bit there. Our revenues for the year, I kind of broke it down and told you where the areas were that we had variances. One of the big areas for a positive variance was in our earnings on investment. As everyone knows, the interest rates have gone up, and accordingly, the interest that we earned on our bank account went up by over 300%. So that was a nice little benefit. The state revenues are fairly predictable. We usually know during the year what is coming in and what hasn't, so not a whole lot of difference there. And of course, federal revenues are always fully offset by federal grant expenditures, so there's really no net impact on taxes for that. We've completed the necessary filings with the state and with the Department of Ed as required at the end of the year, and our fund balance that we'll be able to return to reduce taxes is $470,889. Again, it takes all of those numbers that we talked about before into consideration, and there's a formula here to kind of walk you through how we got there. Another bright spot in fiscal year '24 was that we ended the year with a positive balance in food service. We had a positive balance the prior year, but because our food service program had increased participation, as well as we benefited from some supply chain assistance grants, we actually grew our surplus to $154,000, which is great. We are only able to carry a certain amount of that forward, so we kind of have to put in a small spend down plan, and we have some really exciting things planned for that. One of the things that we're going to look at trying to do are some pop-up chef events throughout the year. Basically, we get a chef that comes in and provides a different type of meal option than our students are typically have available. We're going to make some facilities-based improvements to our food storage area to help with some of our food storage. And we're going to replace some new equipment to enhance our food service production. So with those three items, we should be able to get down to the balance that we're carrying forward. And that, of course, will bring us into our next talk about budget, which is a really good thing to carry a positive surplus for the next year. So that's good. In this report, I've kind of summarized the end of the year, the impact fees and our capital reserves and expendable trusts. Impact fees, you just acted on a release. Capital reserve, you just acted on a release from that. So those balances will go down in accordance with what we're going to take out. We also are going to be coming forward to request some impact fees this year. If you recall, the board voted to use impact fees for our junior senior high courtyard. We are coming to the tail end of that project. We just got the last pieces of equipment in, so we're going to be starting that process with the town and requesting it. I believe it has to be approved at the town level first, and so we will be starting that process to recoup the cost of that project as well. Our bond proceeds, in accordance with your vote taken in May, we officially closed out our bond fund, and the proceeds have been taken into our general fund. They will be used to offset our principal payment, which is coming up in December. So that will assist in this budget cycle as well, because we had budgeted for it fully as part of our operating budget. Coming down the road, there still technically is a House Bill 1279, which, if approved, would restore a state payment of 7.5% for teachers, offsetting our local contribution. At this point, I feel it's doubtful that it's going to pass. It's been in committee. Nothing has come out of committee. It seems like it's kind of just gone there to retire. But technically, it has. No pun intended. Technically, it is still an active bill. I think the likelihood of it passing is probably not high. Another bright spot, this time, the New Hampshire retirement system sets rates, contribution rates biennially every 2 years. So they were setting rates for 26, 27, and 27, 28. So the rates have gone down in both the teacher and the employee rates, not by a whole lot. The teacher rates, I actually have them mixed up on this thing, I just noticed that. The teacher rates currently are 19.64%, and they'll be going down to 19.23%. The employee rate is 13.53, and that will be going down to 12.75. So while that won't be a windfall of money, it certainly will be some relief as we look to budget for our next cycle. Other exciting news for food service. For the first time, I believe in Newmarket's history, we have been approved to take part in a really cool program that the USDA offers. It's called the Fresh Fruits and Vegetables Program. It's based on free and reduced rates, and our middle school group actually qualified for it. That was the only group that qualified. But what it does is they give us a grant. We've got just over $14,000, and it allows us to provide at least 2 times a week, we're hoping for 3, fresh fruits and vegetables and dips or things to go with them, pushing into kids' classrooms. The kids, there is no eligibility requirement. They do not have to receive free or reduced lunch to take part in it. They can go help themselves. And the hope is that they get introduced to some new fruits and vegetables that maybe they don't have at home. But it's a great program, and generally in the districts I've been in, has been really well received by the kids. So we're very excited. We just got approval for that yesterday. We're hoping that this week we're going to start it up this week. And did we start it today? Because Mr. Riley was setting up, making sure that we had all the things in the classrooms we need. So very exciting. And another little bright spot down the road, adequacy aid, which you know is a form of state aid, our largest form of state aid. We received a new estimate for 24-25, the year we're in right now. They always give an updated one, on August 27th. And the final estimate appears to indicate that we will receive about $116,000 more than we knew we were going to receive at the time we built our 24-25 budget. So the increased revenue is always is appreciated and helpful. And then I have attached a couple graphs here for you to kind of see how that looks, the adequacy aid. We've had some peaks and valleys, shifting winds at the state level, but you can see that for the first time since fiscal year 2022, we actually are receiving more in state aid than we did in fiscal year 2022. The other 2 years we got less in subsequent years. So that hopefully will help us as we go through and build our budget. Hopefully that trend will, knock wood, continue. That would be really nice. But we don't know yet what our preliminary adequacy will be for the budget that we're building, which is 25-26. So that's kind of in a nutshell the end of our fiscal 24. Anyone have any questions about any of that?
Can I ask this in regards to the tuition negative variance? Typically, was that...
Could you tell me what page you're on, Amy?
Yeah,
Is it on the chart at the end?
it's at the beginning. It's 150, approximately 150,000 for the variance. Sorry.
Page 8? Is that where you are?
Sorry, I changed it to different page. But there's 80,000 in special ed. I'm just curious, and I can look back, I guess, but has that always been that much money as far as the negative variance from year to year? Just like in the last, say, 5 years?
I'm not sure what you're looking at. I'm looking at the
Okay.
expenditures on page 8 for tuition. Is that what you're talking about, or are you talking about revenues? What are you?
I think on page 10,
Page,
it shows a negative variance.
yeah, it shows a negative on, page 10, the very beginning on tuition. negative variance due to SST and then
Yep.
special
Oh,
ed is
yes.
80,000.
Yep.
I'm just curious, I don't know if it's more of a Todd question or, I'm just curious, like we have over 300,000 in the trust fund for special ed. What is the goal, like when are we gonna ever, you know,
Right.
take from there to offset that 80,000? Probably be good, especially at this point.
Well, if I could,
Yeah.
a couple of things, because obviously that reflects the SST tuition, which we did have a combination of factors there. An increase last year in the number of kids doing SST, combined with the fact that the overall enrollment in SST actually went down, so the per pupil cost went up. So we had more students and a higher cost than we experienced in the past. So there's no question we under budgeted for SST tuition. Just as a quick update, for this year, the numbers are lower. They're back down into, I think we were at 71, 72 last year. Now we've got only 56 kids there this fall. Part of that's because we have a small senior class, which is driving that. But the flip side of that again is that the overall enrollment at SST has gone down, so the cost is, per pupil cost is going up. So we're not going to come out ahead, but we might not be as bad off as we were this past year. With regards to the out-of-district, special education costs, that is, Erica and I talk about this all the time. It is one of those crazy-making kind of things that it is really hard to predict and control for. You're absolutely right. We do have a trust fund that has, I believe, about $350,000 in it that could be tapped at any time. But what you need to keep in mind is that one significant out-of-district placement can easily exceed $300,000. So to be off by $80,000 is actually not in the ballpark of a major level of concern. That being said, as we talked about in budget development, we are actively trying to budget closer to the reality of what is needed. And so like when Erica is building her budget, which we'll talk about at the workshop, she's really thinking about, okay, who are the students we have and what is that going to cost, and developing a budget around that. And that does mean that if we get an unexpected one, we're more likely to need to tap into that fund. So I think that fund, if I were a betting man, I would say we're probably going to tap into it at some point in the near future, just because there's a lot of moving parts when it comes to out-of-district placements. Yeah.
Dan?
So you listed a few happy surprises on the revenue side. How many of those will come into play when DOER resets the tax rate in the next few weeks, I think, if I remember?
So the increased adequacy will impact this year. The retirement change won't take effect really, we won't see that till next year because that's occurring then. What other revenues did I say we have?
Food service, we have a
Yeah.
surplus there, yeah.
The food service surplus cannot be used to offset taxes, so that stays where it's at.
But we will use it to offset operating costs.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So
And-
it impacts us there.
And we're also using that piece as a budgeting, a strategy with our budgeting, because we usually budget for a transfer from the general fund to cover any operating deficits. We obviously don't anticipate needing to do very much, so we have just kind of like a placeholder amount in there this year, but that's going to, as we budget for 25, 26, I think I've budgeted a $25,000 reduction in what we normally budget there, so that's helpful.
And on the topic of the food service surplus, that the increase in surplus above what we carry into the year, make me feel better here. That was all related to unanticipated revenue or
Well,
unanticipated. I just don't ever want to feel like we're running at a profit. The goal there should be to run break even.
right, the goal is to break even, but you have to remember, we got $131,000 as a surplus as a result of kids getting free meals during COVID.
Right.
So we're still riding that out.
That part I got.
Yeah.
When we jumped from 131 to 154, was that difference all from the FDA grant that you were talking?
The SCA, 29,000 of it was from that. And then the rest is kind of, we've had some increased participation. We also increased meal rates, not this year, but last year. So kind of all of those things come together to give us a little bit more of a surplus. But the goal is obviously that we want to, our revenue should offset our expenditures. In truth and reality, that usually isn't the case, but we still are working on the tail end of the beneficiaries of receiving some federal funding that was unanticipated, which is, very much appreciated.
Based on what you're saying,
Like, you can't be too reactive, I think, to change
No.
prices because.
no,
we
we
start
shouldn't.
doing-
But if we came up 20 grand on the surplus in round numbers and we got 29 from the FDA, I feel good about that because the increase in surplus was not only all that, but we actually spent some of the FDA money on
Yep.
other things. So
Yep.
I'm good.
Yeah, and we still have some, just so you know, in this cycle, I think it's about 24,000 that remains of the SCA. So I expect to see this sort of trend kind of carry one more year. It's unlikely they're going to give another group, another tranche of that SCA funding, but, yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else? Okay, great, thank you.
I did, sorry,
Oh.
Bill. You're almost.
Almost out.
Just want to talk about the retained fund balance and percentage. So right now, we're at 3.5%, give us 760,000, or all from here about.
Yep.
And we've talked about trying to get up to 5% eventually. I guess, should we worry less about the percent and more about the actual dollar amount so that we're having a more even kind of transition from year to year as opposed to saying, well, let's get to 5% because that's what we can.
Yeah. I guess it depends on what your overall budgeting strategy is, right? Because obviously that money is there so that you can budget quite tightly to whatever you're going to do, knowing that that's out there. And I will tell you, there have been districts in the state that have had knock wood, God forbid, a roof collapse, and all of a sudden they're looking at $1 million that they don't have. So I think I wouldn't advocate increase, and I didn't this year, advocating increasing because I knew we didn't have a lot to return. But if we ever do wind up with a year, and if you remember the year before that, we had quite a bit coming in, and I said, this is the time if you want to increase that percentage to do that, because it's really hard to find the money to increase it. If you try to decrease it as a relief valve, it's very hard to get that back because you have to have surplus in order to fund it. So I guess I would just say, right for now, I don't see us getting to 5% in the next couple budget cycles unless something very unanticipated happened. But I do think that this is a good buffer, personally.
I agree with you. I'm just wondering if we should not think about it as percentage, we should think about it as actual dollar value. So I thought it was 700,000 every year or 500 million or whatever.
Yeah, that's a very good point because our net assessment's going to change, right? So we may find that 3.5% of our net assessment is going to be way more than what we need here. So yes, I think what we'll be doing is we'll be kind of looking at calculating that out. I usually present the board with an array saying, here's what 2.5% is, here's what 3.5. But we'll know those numbers once they set the assessment values and stuff, because that's dependent on that. But I think that's probably a sound way to look at it. Like I wouldn't advise that you decrease the overall funding, but we may change with the percentage on the recognition. No. And you get to vote on that every year. So that comes to you every year. So you can always titrate that based on the appetite that you have. Okay? All right, thank you.
With that, we'll have discussion items. First discussion item is correspondence. Anyone on the board have any correspondence they'd like to share? Right down into joint town council school board meeting. I spoke meetings earlier. Coming up with an agenda. I think Steve will be sending out shortly. So forward to everyone. So that happens. That's on 16th, 7 p.m. stuff, we have the Festival Services contract in year 26 through 28. And I suspect Jan will be coming back up. Oh, Dave.
Well, Dave's here. Dave's
All
the
right.
man.
Dave, we can split it. Well, something you bring your dog. but-
First, I'm amazed with Jana. You ask her a figure, boy, she pulls that out. It is truly impressive. She knows where every nickel in the school is going. It's really impressive.
She says it so authoritatively, though.
That's true.
It's the presentation that really does it.
So we did our custodial RFP. We had an amazing turnout. We had, 6 different companies come. We got some great bids. I did reference checks. I had to laugh when I did reference checks on Truly, Truly Clean. I said, okay, I'll write down you're very happy. And 2 people said, no, very, very happy. Make sure you include the second very. I said, okay, I will do that. So my recommendation is that we award the bid to Truly, Truly Clean for the next 3 years. The amounts are here. They do Plymouth University, so they do a lot of schools. They're doing 16 buildings, dorm rooms, and academics. St. Patrick's, they had fantastic references, ones that really sort of compared to our situation. That's my recommendation. I think,
Do they have to hire the staff to do our building deal?
that I don't know.
I'm just amazed by the price. I'm assuming there's a typo in year 2 for Casco Bay cleaning services.
No, Casco is significantly less, which is why I was going to ask the question.
Oh, you just mean the
there's a
sex.
decimal. I'm sorry, I see decimal there.
That was my fear, to go with anybody who was significantly less. I know with a lot of RFPs I do, companies will cut their throats to get in and then pray for a change order. Boy, they'll stick it to you with a change order. I was honestly afraid, we had a study done on the schools, and the estimate we came up with was 13 and a half people to properly clean the schools. And I think anybody who was significantly lower was really thinking, hey, we can do it with 6. And the answer is, I don't think you can.
Do we know that in their, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Did they just submit the dollar items, or did they submit a proposal of we would use this many people, and we would use?
I didn't ask staff count. I just wanted to be careful. But if you look at the RFP, boy, I spell out everything they need to do for the schools. It lists how often floors have to be cleaned, what floors have to be cleaned. I did have one vendor show up for the RFP opening, and I said, okay, when we're done, can I get some feedback on this RFP? What did you? And he thought, this is incredibly detailed. You really gave us everything. I included square footage of all the academic areas. We walked around both buildings. So they really walked in eyes fully open.
Am I correct in my recollection that Truly Truly Clean is a local company out of Rochester?
Yes.
And so that one of the things that was particularly appealing is the owner of the company being actively involved in the management of things.
A lot of the reviews, he stops by once a month just to check in. I do a weekly meeting with our current vendor, discuss our roadblocks, what are our successes, how can we support you better, what got missed. And when I mentioned that to Truly Clean, we don't have to do that. These guys do, such a good job. If I have a complaint, it's fixed the next day. Their references were really, really good.
So, and I don't mean to dig in, but in a time where we're super budget constrained, I just want to make sure. So, is Casco Bay or Pritchard not local?
Casco Bay must be out of Portland, I would assume.
Yes, I assume they are.
Just for the record, GDI is our current vendor.
Yes.
And the reason you met with them weekly, I'm going to phrase this nicely. We decided to go to a weekly meeting at some point in the past because we needed to do that.
Yes. We also do we do a morning inspection where the day shift person walks the school, takes pictures, fills out an Excel spreadsheet. That gets sent to our contact there every day. So every day they're getting feedback. And, the references I checked, no, we don't have to do anything. We give them a call, it's fixed the next day. Now, my intent is to continue doing that because I think we deserve a clean, safe, healthy environment to work in. So I really want to, make sure I'm not a huge fan of the outsourced. I would rather have in-house custodians. It's just not feasible right now to do that. So I'm really trying to get as close to that as I can with an outsourced model.
Then $50 grand a year.
I'm struggling. I mean, again, another 50 grand a year, what underpins the belief that that's, you know, I know there are things you probably can't get into, but what was so undesirable about the low bidder that left us feeling? This
My
was the
fear
right-
was that it was so low that they weren't going to be able to meet our standards. You know, we had an issue with a previous vendor that they came in with a very low bid and then came back to us after the fact and said, we can't possibly do this for how much we bid.
We need to increase the rate we pay them because we were stuck with that.
Yes.
We could work into the contract that
Yeah, I mean,
At that point, we couldn't hire anybody. There was no other companies. I don't think we even had other bids. Yeah. But we were kind of stuck at that point. So, yeah, the fact that we got 6 bids is amazing.
And truly, things coming in almost $90,000 less than our current vendor.
Than our current
for next
vendor.
year.
So had we stuck with our current vendor, we'd be.
Hey, I mean, I'm just doing the math. That's $150,000 basically, right? Difference over, or more, over 3 years. What else could we get that we're going to have to cut to make that up?
No, if we knew. I mean, if the references for Casco were the exact same for Truly, then, yeah.
Did we do reference checks on them?
I did reference checks on everybody who was in a reasonable price range, right? My first course was, okay, this is, you know, I can't expect to get approved to pay $688,000 to clean
Yeah.
the schools. So, you know, they got tossed aside. It was Truly really seemed to have a lot of clients that sort of mirrored our situation. A lot of the other cleaners did daycare, smaller locations, or they did office buildings. And cleaning an office building and cleaning a school, two very different situations. So they really had references that better aligned with, you know, what we do here, size-wise, and that it's a school.
Yeah, I just want to, my questions are not because I don't trust you.
No,
or
no,
'cause
no,
I don't
no.
trust, like, I just know that we are
Why
in
not
very
go the lower
tight budget conversations, and every penny, I feel like.
One
To be
thing-
outsourced too, because outsourcing to me is one of the first places that I would look is like, that's not helping someone either, right?
One thing I would say, just because I think it's important to acknowledge, Dave and his team, the internal team, really do a fantastic job of managing all of the aspects of facilities maintenance. And one of the things that has been the case with currently is they have to play much more an active day-to-day role in managing the cleaning, the custodial side of the equation, and feeling that if we can get a better, more efficient model, which we felt very strongly from what you have shared with me, Dave, that Truly Clean was it was the right model for us, particularly the local connection, the sense that there was an owner who was very much invested in making it work for us, that we felt strongly that they would actually come in at their bid, and we'd like to think that Dave's team, his internal team, will be less involved with the day-to-day custodial management. And I think what we're going to find is they have done, and again, we're going to talk about this at budget time, but they have done so much training to build internal capacity to do a lot of the things internally that we've previously had to outsource, like air conditioning and all of those things, that, spoiler alert, Dave's budget is the only department that is actually going down for next year, including the potential for this. So he's really done a fantastic job, and we're meeting the standards that we've set.
We're seeing savings that we didn't even expect. Traditionally, when the automatic toilets went to what I lovingly call perma-flush mode, where they just keep flushing, we had to call an outside plumber. I've trained my staff how to fix those, and we order the parts, and we're saving that. So not only are we saving there, we've seen a marked increase or decrease in our water bills because these things were running until the plumbers came in. So we're seeing savings that we didn't even expect to see by bringing this in-house. So we're now changing all the filters in the HVAC equipment in-house. And my guys are just spending an inordinate amount of time doing inspections every morning, taking pictures, putting those in a Google Drive, doing an Excel spreadsheet where we'll have some days 50, 100 entries of things that got missed. That I'd love to free them up to do more client-facing.
If you look at the increases too that Casco's presenting year over year, they're talking 3.5% or 3,500. Truly Clean's 5,000. year over year. I just feel like they're trying to cut that so close.
I have
It's
no
not
information to base that on. I don't know their size. If they're bigger,
True,
then you
true,
can
fair
have
enough,
less.
But I think we need to trust in Dave and what he's done since he's been here. I think it shows, the building shows.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't deny at all.
I agree. Here's where I am. Maybe this will help other people too. If what you're communicating is that, in your opinion, this is not a lateral expansion for Casco, this is a reach. This is them trying to buy their way into something that they don't currently do, and that causes a crisis of confidence in this very low bid. I get that. I deal with things like that at work, but you need to say it so that we can.
But my fear was honestly that the bid was just so low that they wouldn't be able to. And as we've had come back to us later, or we had one vendor cleaning the schools, I'm trying very hard not to use names, that were trying to clean both schools with 4 custodians overnight, and it's just not doable. And they were saying, this is as much, so they were part-time, 4 people trying to clean both schools, and it wasn't serving my customers, the staff and students well.
So who else, like who is Casco in your reference? Who are they using now? Who do they clean now? I think that's what your point was, Dan, right? If
Yeah,
they're doing other schools and they're low
Right.
because
Well, he
they're,
said they were doing daycare.
well,
Yeah,
other
if
vendors.
if they're not doing anything comparable to our operation, and this really has the feel of somebody who's reaching for something that they
Doesn't
might
understand
not
the market,
understand.
yeah.
Amen, I'm on
I
board
checked
with
for
nothing.
references for Casco, Boys and Girls Club of Auburn, Boys and Girls Club Portland, Children's Museum, and the Council on Aging.
None of which sounds like it has the square footage that.
Probably
None
not.
of
Children's
our schools
Museum.
has the same usage patterns that we have.
The new one. Have you seen the new one?
The new children's.
Still not even close to this.
Cleaning a school is a very unique environment.
All right, that's good.
Yeah.
I just want to have the feeling that there's, you're the one who's put in the work. Just, I want to just understand that there's a rationale here beyond just, I thought the other one was too cheap.
I mean, I'll be perfectly honest with you, the too cheap was a large part of it. It really was. Just having been bitten by that in the past, I'm honestly afraid of.
Totally hear that, but if they were like a big company that was doing 100 schools, then you can get a lot of economies of scale by being big and coming
Sure.
at a lower bid. But if they're
Sure.
doing other like museums and stuff, and this is just something they don't understand how to even price against a school, that is like I think a viable argument. Purpose. Thanks.
Oh,
Thank you for putting up for my question.
No, I like being checked, and, I strangely enough enjoy this.
That is strange.
Anyone else have any questions? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We move along to very detailed, specific, arduous school
Yes.
calendar.
Yes, I've mentioned this to you before. HB 1014 changed the way municipalities and school districts were required to reference federal holidays. Specifically, Columbus Day is the federal holiday, and the law requires that it be the primary reference on our calendar. You may recall we had made the decision to call it Columbus Day / Indigenous Peoples Day. Closer read of the statute caused me to feel that it would be better to take the same approach that the town of Durham is, which is asterisking it and saying locally known as Indigenous Peoples Day, but you keep the Columbus Day as the national holiday. So it's not trying to usurp the holiday, it is acknowledging Columbus Day is the federally designated holiday, and locally we also refer to it as Indigenous Peoples Day. So this change adds an asterisk on the calendar. Does nothing to the days or anything, but I feel it is closer, it's more in line with the spirit of the law.
Great.
Since the legislature has solved every other pressing problem.
All right. Discussion item number 5. First read policy revisions AC and Does anyone want to present those changes or something that we?
I mean, they're incredibly full of like very detailed, like legal content. I don't know, Todd, if you want to give.
Yeah, I mean, basically the change in ACAC is, it was all the timelines. The recommended timelines, you have to have, the law, the federal law requires that you investigate in a prompt and expeditious manner, but it doesn't specify the days. And the proposed policy from the School Board Association actually mapped it out and gave a lot of different days and different steps along the way. In a small organization like ours, if you're dealing with a harassment complaint of any kind, you can get tripped up very quickly by having too many deadlines that have to be met in various timelines. So we moved to make didn't take away timelines, we simply just made it more general. So, if you go towards the end of ACAC, you will see the red. We simply removed a number of specific days and then still make it clear that our intention is to move as expeditiously as possible to resolve any complaint, but that we also maintain the ability to be flexible. If we start investigating something and what you thought was going to take 10 days actually takes 30 days, you have to be able to take the time. And so that's the logic in that change. ACE, there actually are no changes in it, and I have to apologize. You will get, at the second read, 5 R documents that will be presented, and it's basically, ACE talks about a complaint form. And so we will have 5 variations of complaint forms for different types of issues. But again, it's not the policy, it's the procedural side, which is not actually a policy, it's just how we track it. So that when you do the second read, I will have 5 variations of those forms. I was not able to get it pulled together in time for tonight.
So the only changes on the first one is
Timelines,
Timeline.
back down towards the end.
the reading time.
And it's timeline, those are changes from the proposed School Board Association drafted.
Right. And that was actually, I did spend some time talking with the attorney for the School Board Association who drafted it, and he said, yeah, if I'd have thought of it the way you were thinking that, I probably would have done the same thing. So he was very, very, very much felt that what our thinking was appropriate.
Just the through A and B are correct. CCD is DD.
Oh,
E.
I do have to say, we have encountered, board docs is great, but when you cut and paste from the School Board Association documents, the formatting gets wonky. So we are, in fact, Ellen is getting up to speed on the functionality of board docs and where problem solving is. So yes, those will be fixed prior to the next read.
All right. Last item in discussion is superintendent evaluation. We have them on public reserve for tonight to go into more discussions about the superintendent evaluation, but I thought it would be useful if we maybe presented some of his goals and what he's achieved so that the community can keep updated as well. Discuss those.
Right place. Yes. My document fell here. Hold on. There we go. Thank you. I'm learning. Okay, so just to broadly just talk about the goals that were set. Remember, we went through a process where each building had established school growth plans. The board went through a process to develop goals, and then I developed my goals to align with various things that we're working on. From that, I established 3 goals that I shared with you back in June. First goal was really tied into developing a multi-tiered system of support across the district and working with our teams to be able to make that happen. And I'll talk about progress on that in a second. Goal number 2 was really broadly trying to promote a collaborative student-centered school culture that values teachers, student, parent, and community voice. Really trying to tie into the fact that both of the school growth plans are focusing on communication, and obviously the board has had a number of goals regarding the communication. And there are so many elements to how we develop relationships within our organization, but also between our organization and the community, and how we develop ways in which we're sharing information, but also hearing what people are thinking and trying to create that sort of two-way sort of thing. So really that's what I was trying to envision there, and also trying to really embrace professionally within our school community a very collaborative decision model, and that's one of the reasons why I'm real pleased with the growth plans that both schools have developed. They're staff-driven, they're staff-run, and so it's promoting the idea that it's not the administration telling everybody what to do, it's the staff working together to solve what are perceived to be challenges of the district. So we're really working to do that. So that's goal number 2. And then goal number 3 is really tied into the budget process, which I spoke on earlier. We're very actively involved in the development of the budget and trying to make sure that we present a responsible budget to you, which I anticipate doing on October 17th. And then the other piece to that is we did a lot of work over the course of the last 6 months around trying to get our budget goals set, because we knew we had a teacher contract coming down the pike, and we wanted to make sure that we were in a position to be able to manage that without having too dramatic of an impact on the budget. So those were the goals. So things that I wanted to kind of share with you as things that I feel very positive about in terms of accomplishments there. First off, we do have a district level leadership team that is involved in managing our multi-tiered system of support. There are representatives from all levels, both buildings and the SAU, and the intent of it is to try to develop oversight of the efforts that are going on, but also to develop some kind of consistency to what's the data we're tracking, how are we doing it, when we're using terminology, like we have a term win time, like win what I need at different levels, it means different things, but how are you using that time, how are you tracking it, and trying to develop that. So we've got a building, a district level committee, and then each building has its own steering group. And through that, we are beginning to build structures within the master schedules. Like I said, the win concept, but also looking at the different types of supports that we have in place and determining if the things that we're doing are working, and if they're not, what do we need to do differently. The other thing, which I think ties into the report that Patty gave to you guys at your last meeting on beginning to look at what are the data points that we should be tracking, because when you're talking about student growth, yes, an iReady score can be a great thing, but there are other ways to know whether students are learning and growing, and what are those points. We've had a lot of conversation around attendance data and trying to track that in terms of absenteeism and taking a look at that and what is the impact of that on student growth, looking at grades in classes, particularly at the high school level, and really trying to zero in on what are the areas that our kids are challenged in and how can we better support them. So that's all the stuff that's happening with the MTSS world, and I feel pretty confident that we're moving in a positive direction there. And then really the last goal, which is really a work in progress. Both elements of it are kind of in as we speak. We're working to negotiate a teacher contract and trying to make sure that that's meeting the needs of the district, but also developing a contract that's going to promote the kind of professional environment we want in our district. And then obviously working very hard with the leadership team to go through our budget and develop a budget that meets that 2% goal. And I'm real confident we're going to hit that target when we present to you. So those are the 3 goals that I set, and that's just kind of a general update of how I feel things have gone so far.
Actually, I do have a question. My goal number 1, when you have the district level leadership team, that MTSS, it says to determine the support and find the win block. Can you just remind me of the win block again?
different levels, it's set up differently, but basically it's a chunk of time that teachers can program for to develop plans that are individual in nature or small group in nature to meet student needs. So for example, if you've got use math as the example, let's say you've got 20 kids in the class, 3 kids need a particular thing, and basically the WIN block allows you to sort of differentiate and address those needs. It's also a time when kids that are getting any kind of direct instructional support, either through a tutor or some kind of an interventionist, that's when they can access it. Because one of the things that research on student growth shows is if a kid is behind and you pull them out of their core instruction to provide them extra, they never catch up. So they miss the core instruction. And so what we want to make sure is that the support we're giving is an add-on and is actually moving the ball forward. And so we're trying to use that time really efficiently. At the elementary school and middle school, it's very much a team approach. So at the grade level, you can kind of think of it that way. When you get to the high school level, we're using more of a lab approach where kids that are struggling can be assigned to a math lab or an English lab, a study lab, if you will, that has a certified educator there to kind of work with them, help them get caught up. And the goal also, we haven't reached that point yet because it's too early in the year, but trying to catch as many kids as early as possible for credit recovery so that we're not, if a kid has not succeeded in quarter 1, the odds are pretty good they're going to struggle in quarter 2 and 3 and 4. And so if you don't do anything about it in quarter 1, you're losing them. And we're hoping that by doing stuff early, fewer kids will get to March, April, and then be like, well, I'm going to fall behind in an English credit or whatever. So, anyway, that's what we're talking about there.
Generous donation from the Coastal River donated $500 for the Christmas supply for the middle and senior high school Newmarket. Action items. With the motion to approve the items anticipated funds under 90.
That's actually a mistake.
Yep, it is.
It should be approve, hold on, back up. Approve the, approve the withdrawal of excess fund.
Seek a motion to approve the withdrawal of $255,000 from the capital reserve trust fund to improvement. The actual fund, still there, and maintenance fund, thank you very much.
So moved.
Second.
Yeah, okay, Motion to go. Thank you.
Gary, did we have 2 donations?
We did, one's actually a approval.
Okay.
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 Thank you very much.
Yep.
No discussion about the local employee? All in favor?
Aye.
We're not here for the, do that stuff that we. All right, seek a motion to approve the public minutes for September 5th, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
Second by Joe. Any discussion?
In committee updates under paragraph 4, where it says I discussed the policy committee. This is legal updates and emergently approved policies. I believe that means emergency approved policies. What does it mean?
Yeah.
Not approved.
Two things. Under the sort of roll call at the top, I think we lost the back part of Olivia's name. And committee updates, number 3, meet with the joint committee. Is that the town council we're referring to, or?
Yeah, the joint,
All right.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, well, don't teach from the time.
That's all I
Am I right? All right. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Four. Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Oops. Oh, no, it's, no, it's
The 19th, she wasn't here.
Oh, gosh, I'm sorry. Like that. Didn't tell you. All right. Mary, do the September, okay. Thank you. Is a motion to approve the public and non-public minutes from September 19th.
So moved.
Second.
Bill, second by Jim. Any discussion?
So under the board comments and committee updates, today, under Belazaro, shared an update regarding the policy committee. So that it says the at-large committee met and scheduled the next meeting in October. It's the CIP committee. And then it says the master planning committee, it's the master plan committee.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nay? Any abstention? Thank you.
Yeah, this is required by policy that any field trip outside of the state of New Hampshire needs to be approved by the board. So Annette Blake and Christina Bover, our department, are taking kids on December 4th to the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston to go to the Georgia O'Keeffe exhibition. And over 40 kids and 4 chaperones, and a fun time had by all, I'm sure.
Motion to approve the field trip to the Unified Arts.
So moved. Hopefully nobody needs to be carried.
Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion to approve the custodial services year 26 through 28 to truly as recommended. As truly recommended.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Andy, second by Bill. Sorry.
That'll never get old.
Certainly no.
Any discussion? Thank you very much for all your diligence into that.
Thanks, Dave.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
No, aye.
Not the maybe.
Take a motion to approve the school district holiday name change to the calendar. for Annual Ministry.
So,
Any discussion? Thank you for your search of an alternative that's,
It took me a long time to find that asterisk.
all right, all those in favor?
Aye. I move to approve the manifest total of $987,761.36.
second.
Bill, second by Dan. All those in favor?
Aye.
With that,
Didn't accept these.
oh, gosh. Thank you so much. Seek motion to accept the NCDP grant totaling $1,392.25.
And I just want to note, we had significant internal debate because it's 2 donations, but the check is for $1,396.25. Therefore, it exceeds the $1,000 limit that I can accept.
So moved.
Second.
Bill, second by Lonnie. Anyone Steve, followed by? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. With that, CP, motion on public session, 91, to discuss superintendent evaluation and student.
So moved.
Discuss Dan. Second, Andy, roll call vote, Lonnie,
Aye.
Andy.
Aye.
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 With that, we're in non-public session.